Hey everyone, my name is Lenny Gliva here with TCO Fly Shop with our second installment of our new hatch matching series. So today we're going to be talking about caddis flies. So caddis are a really important food source for trout across the globe. I oftentimes tell people in the shop, if you're fishing a trout stream, it's going to have some caddis in it, even if it's a very marginal stream that gets stocked. It only holds trout for a few months a year. There's almost certainly going to be some midges, some caddis, and maybe, if you're lucky, some blueing olives on even the most marginal of waters. So caddis are really pretty unique. There's a number of species across the eastern United States, let alone across the country and the world. They come in a variety of sizes and shapes and colors. But today we're going to focus on just kind of the way I approach a caddis kind of event. So we're lucky here in Pennsylvania. We start seeing our first caddis usually on the right around the beginning of April. Sometimes a little sooner, sometimes a little later, and that's obviously going to depend on where you're fishing in the state. I don't look at caddis in the sense that I do like other mayfly events where I'm going to have specific flies for blueing olives and specific flies for sulfurs and Hendricksons and marsh browns, etc. I kind of just have a caddis box or two. Within there, I'm going to have a lot of different variation as far as the size and the color of the flies, like I mentioned, but I don't really view individual caddis species as being as important as individual mayfly species. As a whole, caddis are hugely important, but I don't really see much difference from a fishing perspective denoting between, say, like a granum or, say, just like a regular old-fashioned tan caddis. Obviously, they're going to be different sizes, and we're going to fish flies, according to that. So caddis are also unique in the sense that they have an additional stage in their maturation process of a pupation stage. As they get into their pupal form, coming from a larva into a pupa, just like a midge would, they do some kind of really interesting stuff. They create a little gaseous bubble that's actually going to help them reach the surface of the water and then eventually emerge into an adult caddis. You'll also have egg-laying events on the backside after they've reached adulthood and have spent a few days kind of flying around and mating. So when I start looking at a caddis event, obviously before caddis are consistently hatching, and you can really fish them year-round, but especially right before you expect those first caddis events to start occurring, I'm going to be fishing a lot of caddis larvae. For a long time, I never really gave enough credit to that type of bug for sure as a fisherman. But a good buddy of mine, Sam Galt, one of our guides up in the State College store, he's a hell of an angler, and he is a fanatic about fishing caddis. And he's really opened my eyes to just exactly how effective they can be year-round, but especially kind of in the early spring. We've got higher water events on average, and you can fish some pretty big caddis larvae to help get your flies down in heavier flows. You can also fish really small ones as well, but I definitely have to credit Sam with kind of getting me back into fishing more and more caddis over the last few years. So caddis larvae come in a variety of different styles as well. Some are free-living caddis, some are case caddis, some are net builders. Essentially what this means is that like a case caddis, a lot of us have probably seen them. You flip over rocks, you pick up branches in the middle of the stream, and you'll see these little tiny cocoon-looking things made out of sticks and stones with maybe a little tiny head of the caddis poking out. That's a really effective fly to fish, like for instance right before our granums hatch. We have here in Pennsylvania, Mother's Day caddis out west, obviously very similar. But whether you're fishing a free-living caddis or a case caddis, just keeping those flies in the box and fishing them is, I think, just a really overlooked portion of fly fishing for us here. At least always was for me. Following that, you're going to get into the pupal stage, like I talked about. This is when caddis are actively emerging, and I'm still going to be fishing plenty of larva patterns at that point, but I'm really going to start focusing on fishing a lot of caddis pupa. There's a lot of different styles of them. We're going to get into tying one later on here in the series, but one of my favorites is, for instance, like a John Anderson's bird of prey caddis. So it's a very simple kind of platform, allows you to tie it in a variety of sizes, variety of colors. It's not the most realistic kind of imitative caddis pupa you've ever seen, but it's been a killer pattern for me. that's a great style. Variety of different soft tackle style nymphs are really good there. And again, you can tie some more realistic and imitative things as well. After that, we're going to get into obviously our traditional emergers. Like the pop emerger style Caddis emergers are really good. As are obviously things like the Craig Matthews X Caddis. It's one of my favorite flies. We're also going to tie that in the series. It is incredibly simple and it is incredibly effective, especially on really heavily pressured fish. There's no hackle to it. It's just a deer hair wing. It sits very low in the film. It rides really low in the surface of the water there, and definitely has accounted for some really good dry fly fishing for me over the years. And then lastly, we're going to have our adult caddis. Probably the most famous caddis fly of all time would be the elk hair caddis, created by Al Troth. For the right situations and the right type of water, the elk hair caddis is really, really tough to beat. It allows you to twitch them, pop them, skitter them, skate them across the surface of the water. But again, looking to where I do a lot of my dry fly fishing, things that are riding a little bit lower in the surface of the water tend to do better. So if I'm fishing riffles and really fast broken water, maybe I'm still going to put on an elk hair caddis. But fishing things like CDC caddis, CDC and elk, which is another fly we're going to tie in the series here, is just going to allow you to get a fly that's going to ride a little bit lower, in the water, and I think account for a few more dry fly fish for you throughout the course of the season. One of my favorite ways to fish caddis are in a dry dropper system. So, like I said, right before the hatching usually starts each year, I'm going to find myself fishing more and more caddis larvae. As I get into proper caddis season, there's bugs actively hatching, fish actively eating them, whether that's on the surface or very near to the surface of the water. I'm going to start fishing more and more pupa. And then once they're up and eating, then I'm definitely going to be trying to fish some dry flies for sure. So I like to fish dry dropper, and a lot of times even dry dropper. That was something taught to me by George Daniel, who was my boss up in State College for a number of years, where I'll fish a large, very buoyant dry fly up on the surface, say up here, and then as I work my way down, I'll run, anywhere, depending upon the depth of the water, maybe 12 to 24 inches down. I'm going to have a dropper tag down around here, where I'll have a short length of tippet and my first dropper. A lot of times I like to fish a soft hackle style pupa there. Like I said, the bird of prey is a killer option right there. And then as I get down into my bottom fly, eventually I'm going to be fishing your point. That might be another heavier caddis pupa, or that might be a caddis larva, or that might be just a generic pheasant tail or any other kind of mayfly imitation. But when you have fish that are actively eating caddis, specifically really keyed up on those pupa, they're going to be watching bugs actively emerging very quickly from the bottom to the top of the water column, and having the ability to cover 1, 2, and 3 portions of the water column really can provide some really good fishing opportunities for you. So that's about it. Like I said, caddis are awesome in the sense that they start early and they usually go for a really long time for us. Spring Creek has the lunchtime caddis hatch that everyone talks about. A size 16 tan caddis that will emerge for literally weeks and weeks, if not months and months, on the right year. So definitely be sure to have multiple different stages of caddis. You don't want to just have dry flies and you don't want to just have nymphs. Think about fishing them in a traditional nymphing rig, like we've talked about in the past, or definitely give or give it a try to fish that dry dropper system, or even that dry dropper system. Be sure to let your flies dead drift, but also be sure to let them do some swinging, some skating, especially with the caddis pupa patterns. A lot of times I'll dead drift them throughout the first 3/4 of the drift, and then I'll definitely let them swing at the end. You'd be amazed at how many fish you pick up on the swing. So we're going to get into doing some tying here. If you have any questions, for sure, like I said, reach out. Let us know what you're thinking of the series. Otherwise, let's get tying, and thank you very much.